everybody. It's time for the first episode of the XP Billionaires Self Isolation Edition. Thankfully, our recording process is fairly self isolating to begin with, so we're able to continue giving you all the RPG talk, all the fun, and you guys don't get to miss a beat, which is great because it's just one extra thing for you guys to do to stay occupied during this very, very difficult time. This is Ray Thegrim, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Sky Knight, Irene Rogue, and the Mel Zerker. Let's get some introductions out of the way and maybe a quick update on how you guys are surviving this time. Sky, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm basically a hermit anyway, so like having to self-isolate doesn't really bother me much.
That's pretty helpful. I mean, if you weren't living with me, you'd probably be very, very much alone. And I'm not sure if you'd be okay with that or not. And I'd rather not get the answer to that, to be honest. All right, Irene, how are you doing today?
I'm not bad. I'm a little tired. I had a very long drive yesterday.
Yeah, you've basically gone from one isolation zone to the net to another, have you?
Yeah, but instead of isolating by myself, I'm isolating, with my people, so it's less lonesome.
That definitely helps. I mean, I don't think I could have handled it myself if I were living alone, I'll be honest. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm already getting a little on the stir crazy side. Like only thing I can do at this point is go and take walks just to get some fresh air, and that's it.
I will admit the fact that the Starbucks down the street was still taking mobile orders was pretty much the only reason I didn't go stir crazy last week. I'm also working from home right now with my job.
Mhm.
So they told me they didn't really care where home was so long as I was, safe and practicing proper social distancing. So I'm working remotely from here instead of my usual place. And Animal Crossing is out, so that's keeping me entertained. But because I drove, I got to pack the PS4 as well. So I'm playing a little bit of Persona 5, a little bit of Neo 2, like a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I've actually been using this time to basically clean out the backlog. I've got in a week so far, I've cleared out four games finally that I just hadn't gotten around to finishing. I've finished a playthrough of The Outer Worlds. I've finished Greedfall this morning. I've started and finished East One, which was a JRPG that was meant for an older console, so it wasn't didn't really have a long lifetime. And oh man, what was the other thing that I finished? I know there was one more.
While it's great to have like all the games that cleared out of the backlog, there is something to be said for the idea that it's like, cool, I have all this time to play games and I really like to go outside. It's like it's too much of a good thing in some cases.
Yeah, it is definitely. I'll get back to whatever that fourth game was that I finished. I know there was one more, and it's bugging me now. But moving on, Mel, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm a week into my social isolation, so that's been fun. My cat is freaking out because he has no idea what's happening, and I am constantly sleeping. But I also have Animal Crossing to keep me company, so that's been very fun.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I passed on Animal Crossing, and like I like the games. I think they're fun in and of themselves, but it's one of those things. Like I remember when the 3DS Animal Crossing came out, both Sky and I got it, played it for 2 weeks, and then we were done. There was just nothing left to do at this point. So it became so much of a commitment that as soon as something else came up, I had to drop it.
Yeah, that sounds fair. I mean, this is my first Animal Crossing game ever, so I'm still at that point where I'm like, so how does one do this? Is this normal? Like, what does this happen? The fun
Same.
thing is that like most of the instructions online that you can get, like walkthrough stuff, are accurate going back to like 2011 because the game is so consistent. So there's actually a lot of help with there, which is nice.
Oh yeah, like I remember going back to I bought and played the very first Animal Crossing, which was the GameCube. So like I from everything that I've seen, there's not a significant difference. It just either added a little bit more or giving you more content to work with.
Honestly, I'm really enjoying it just because it's like it's so wholesome and so cutesy and so exactly what my anxiety riddled soul needs right now. Tom Nook might be a scumbag, but he's adorable. So
Yeah, I can see him very adorably, hammering your kneecaps when you don't pay his bills. All right. Well, let's say we have a little fun this week and do something a little different from our usual podcast topics. So this week, I figured let's play a game. Let's we talk about video games. Let's play one here on the show. Now, we're not going to play through a video game with you guys on the podcast, but what we are actually going to play is a game of Would You Rather, or as I like to call it, Would You Rather RPG Edition. So basically, we've taken some time and we've come up with a bunch of different sadistic choices related to RPG gaming. And we're going to take those suggestions, we're going to pass them around, and we're going to see which ones you guys would choose. Now, I tried to be as hurtful and sadistic as possible with my choices, and we'll see if everybody else has done the same. Yeah, well, what we're going to do is we've got about 7, 8 choices here. I got some dice. We're going to roll it, and we're going to pick them all out at random, and we're going to see how many we can do within our half-hour timeline. So that being said, let's begin. I'm going to roll the die, and the first number up is number 3, and that is from Mel. So, Mel, why don't you give us the choice?
Okay. All right. So my question is this. So we all want a game that's kind of perfectly suited towards our time commitment, but also to the story it's telling. But if you had to pick, would you want a game that goes too long or a game that ends too quickly?
Oh, wow. Why don't you just ask me to cut off my arm while you're at it?
Would you rather cut off your arm or grow an extra half of an arm?
Half of an arm, definitely.
Yeah, half of an arm. So at the same time, it's like I understand the dilemma. It's like, okay, well, now it's overstayed its welcome. So what do I do versus I wasn't done yet? Which one is more unsatisfying?
I can go first if you'd like, because I have an answer.
Okay.
A great game that's too short every time.
Why is that?
I would rather a game not overstay its welcome. And frankly, RPGs are notorious for overstaying their welcome with hugely long playtimes. And I like a decently long game, don't get me wrong. But I don't usually put like 120 hours into a game. That's just not what I do. Because I have other things I want to experience, no matter how good that game is. So I'm going to say a great game that's too short every time.
You know what? I'm going to have to agree on that. I have to say the short as well, because I actually just went through a game that overstayed its welcome. I hate saying it because I really liked the game, but Greedfall. Getting to the end game of Greedfall, they just kept throwing all these little runaround things at you just to prolong the experience. But I was ready. I was fully ready to just go charge at the final boss, and I couldn't do it because I had to do a whole bunch of these little things right off the bat first. I just can't do that when you're doing it just for prolonging your game. Like it was very intentional, and you could tell that the developers were just like, oh wait, we don't want it to end yet, we want to make sure you get more out of your money. But that's just a bit of a mistake in my opinion. The other game that did this for me was the original Ni no Kuni. When we got the version here on the PS3, like the White Witch storyline was the added on part. When it was brought over, it was completely unnecessary. I had no interest in it. I finished it. I did, but it was just like it wasn't nearly as good or as fun as just the main story. It would have been much better if he had just walked away when he did. So yeah, make your games shorter, make your games great, make them, and then there's room for us to speculate. There's also room for you to consider a sequel. So I say go for it that way.
Yeah, I see what you mean. oftentimes when I'm not ready for a game to end, I'll just kind of stop playing for a little while and then have to start over because I will have forgotten what I'm doing. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for me because it's like, okay, well, if it's too short, then I won't want to finish it because I'm not done with it yet. I'm not emotionally ready for the story to be over. But it comes at like a sort of cost because then it's like, okay, well, now what? I'm stuck in this almost limbo. And I don't really know what the answer is, to be honest. I like both. A variety of both isn't necessarily a bad thing, so long as the game is good.
Yeah, and it also depends on what you're in the mood for, right?
Yeah.
That like sometimes I am not willing to play something super extensive, and sometimes I am. Like it just variety is the spice of life.
Exactly. Like, I'm playing Neo right now because I want to finish it before I get on to Neo 2. But I really want to get on to Neo 2. And I have all this DLC with Neo to play through still. Like, it's a long game. And part of me is like, okay, well, I'd like to just play the sequel now. The result's probably going to be that I'm not going to finish the original Neo and just move straight to the second one. But we'll see how long my patience lasts.
Oh, fair enough. All right. So, Mel, unless you have anything else to add with yours.
No, I think that's a great answer. I definitely lean on the side that I'd rather it be too short as well. That's what fan content's for. Anyways, that's my
No, that's perfect. That's exactly one of the things I was thinking. I just didn't get it out there. Like Irene, like if the game's too short, you finish it, then you write more yourself. Then you stay in the world, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's true. My 80-page plus Zelda fan fiction is still going, so
damn.
yeah, it's not short. I very much like it.
Well, and I think one of the things too is that you can not be playing the game and still be in the world. Whether it be engaging with fan content or even just having it in your thoughts and thinking about the setting and, replaying games even if you want to return to them. Like they're not finite experiences that way. You can always go back to a good experience.
That's also true. All right, let's roll the dice again and let's see what our next sadistic choice is. I just rolled a 2. That one is mine. Uh-oh. Oh, you guys are in for it.
Okay, hit us.
All right. Would you rather get an excellent remaster or remake of that one old game you've been wanting forever, or get a direct sequel to your favorite game series, but it doesn't include the original writers and developers?
Remaster or remake of a beloved old title, which I'm getting. Less than a month now.
What game is it?
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Of course.
So
you
well,
actually had to ask.
I
Well, I
don't
was
know
like,
if
is
you
there another big one that's coming out that I didn't know about? Like, I got excited. This is the problem with isolation.
right?
Yeah. Sky, what do you think?
This is the one where I'm gonna hedge because I think it depends. It depends on the series. It depends on who's making the game.
I catered this one specifically to you. I'm basically asking you, would you rather have Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, which will be coming out soon, or Suikoden 6, just with a different team of writers?
In theory, maybe Suikoden 6, but on the other hand, like, I don't trust.
Konami.
Yeah, exactly. I don't trust Konami. And now maybe if they licensed it out to somebody else, maybe. But I think this one really depends on the circumstances. Like Irene did with the last question, I'm gonna hedge and say depends on the circumstances.
And it's like, I will say that I'm more willing to go with like a remake or a remaster, like a really good remaster of an old game, specifically because of that, like, oh my god, I want Suikoden 6, the monkey's paw finger curls. You know? Like, it feels like there have been a few games that have come out lately that's like, whose monkey's paw wish was this?
That's a good way to put it. Well, I'm going to go on the other side. I'm going to say I'd rather something new. I think I'm a risk taker. I don't know. Like, it's cool that, like, a remake is always cool, but to some degree, well, depends. Sometimes you know what you're getting, but you might get something totally new. I mean, it might be terrible. I mean, come on, I did not like Andromeda, but maybe it'll be really good.
I mean, you can hope.
You can hope. I think that's what it is. I think I want to hope that it'll be good.
I actually enjoyed Andromeda more than I probably should have.
Yeah, me too.
But, like, I get what you mean. Like, I can understand wanting to take the risk, but at the same time, it's like, okay, do I want an installment of a series that I love by people who don't understand the property and why it's good?
But maybe they do. It's just different people. Maybe they're still good.
Oh, they could be.
Maybe. And now you understand why Star Wars makes me so angry.
And, like, it's similar to what they're now speculating, just as a bit of to churn the rumor mill a little bit, that Sony is looking to buy a whole bunch of Kojima properties from Konami, including Silent Hill and Metal Gear Solid. But, like, without Kojima, I'm not sure I would necessarily trust a new, like, Silent Hill game from Konami, because it's Konami. Konami of now is not this Konami of yesteryear. It's like the Square Enix of now is different on the upswing, I would say, from the Square Enix of the PS3 era.
I think that's valid, and this doesn't mean, too, that something like when people are dismal on Konami, I always dismal about Konami. I always say, well, you know what? It's a company, and the people in a company change, right? So just because they couldn't make, say, Suikoden 6 now, doesn't mean they couldn't in the future.
Oh, they could. I'm not saying that it could never happen. It's just right now. No,
right now, however, they're releasing things like Metal Gear Survive and Contra Rogue Corps, both of which are reportedly terrible.
Right.
And shit on beloved franchises, right? So this is why when you added the caveat of does not include the original writers, developers, that's what made me hedge. Because, like, if that caveat wasn't there, I would say direct sequel in a heartbeat.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't want to make it that easy for you. So
yeah, exactly. I am not necessarily opposed to someone else writing a sequel to a beloved game series. I just think it depends on who that person is.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, for me, I want the remaster or the remake personally. Like, my hope is that someday we see, like, full on 3D modeled versions of the Trails in the Sky series. That's my dream. I know we're getting a remastered version of the Trails of Zero series, at least in Japan for now, and that's a good start. But I want to see those games look like the Trails of Cold Steel series, the full 3D modeling, rebuild the whole city. And I've already seen that they've done a really good job when it comes to mapping. I've seen one town now in both the 2D and the 3D aspecting, and they did a fantastic job mimicking it into Cold Steel. So I think they could pull it off really well.
Get the Final Fantasy VII remake treatment.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't need it. Like the the very anime sprite based traveling that you do in Trails in the Sky and Trails of Zero, like, it's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But
Oh, I'm just saying, like, pull it into a modern engine, like, pull it into the engine they designed for, like, Trails of Cold Steel 3 or something like that.
oh, absolutely. I would beyond love to see that. So
It looks like they've reused a lot of that. Like, for Final Fantasy VII Remake, there was actually a small kerfuffle because people were like, didn't they just reuse the character model for Noctis on Cloud? I'm like, even if they reuse, like, a lot of his face, who cares? I'd rather them spend time on the game than, like, remodeling Cloud's face. Let them
yeah,
use the same basic face shape. Jesus.
definitely. All righty, we got time for one more little debate, so we're gonna roll it out. This one comes from Sky, and it is going to be the very last one on the list.
Okay. So, would you rather have a game with an excellent soundtrack or a game with excellent voice acting?
Voice acting. Oh my god, voice acting.
I gotta
Because
say soundtrack.
no, voice acting. At least for me.
I gotta go soundtrack too. Tell me about voice acting though. I mean, like I love it, but why are you so sure?
Infinite Undiscovery. That game for the Xbox 360 had a wonderful soundtrack, but the voice acting was so bad, it was the reason I stopped playing. I have never heard voice acting so terrible in all of my life. Like, it was like cheesy friggin' Dynasty Warriors style voice acting where like the voice didn't actually go with the character whatsoever. It sounded like they had rounded up like the finance department to voice these people. And like, oh my god, it was so awful I actually stopped playing.
Yeah, I am actually going to come down with Irene on this one. Voice acting kills me sometimes. Like, I can deal with a mediocre soundtrack, but even mediocre voice acting can be really hard to deal with. Simply because that is a huge immersion thing for me as well. Like, they need to sound natural. They need to sound like how actual people would talk.
And like, I'm playing Persona 5 right now, right? Generally, excellent voice acting, except the entire cast got together and decided to pronounce it Sakamoto. And I'm like, why did you do that? Every time you say Sakamoto, I want to die. Because it's not how
That
you pronounce that name.
and that's
It's
why you download
Sakamoto.
the Japanese track.
Oh, I know, but like, I don't understand. In a game that has such, good performances, why did they all collaborate to mispronounce this one character's name? And like, everybody does it.
Yeah.
And it's
Now,
always immersion breaking for me. Drives me crazy. I'm playing it right now and I'm like, this would have been really easy to run by your localization team, guys. And like, maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's not how it's supposed to be pronounced. Like, if I'm wrong, I will I will apologize and take that back immediately. But like, I'm pretty sure I'm not.
Well, and stuff like that is pretty common in in dubbed versions, and I agree. It drives me up the wall. Just learn how to pronounce things properly. Learn how to pronounce things consistently. I mean, I love the original Baten Kaitos game. Don't get me wrong. But one of the islands is pronounced differently by different characters, and it drives me up the freaking wall.
Yeah, at least they all decided to like go with the same bad pronunciation. If they had all had different bad pronunciations, I think I would have lost my shit.
It's one of the things that's really hard for me to deal with, and it's one of the reasons why I if it's available, I will default to a Japanese track because I am less likely to
Crappy voice acting.
crappy voice acting in the Japanese because I don't speak the language. But also, I do think generally that the quality is better. And it sounds more natural, and it's also what I've gotten used to, don't get me wrong. But I mean, particularly in games that are very rooted in Japanese culture, it makes sense to use the Japanese voice track. If I'm being forced to go to the English track, it better be damned good, particularly if it's something like, say, Persona, which is heavily based in Japanese culture.
Right? And
Yeah.
like it's my one nitpick about all the performances in the Persona 5 like voice acting. That's my one like thing. But it is immersion breaking nonetheless because I'm like, okay, so that's not how you pronounce that, but okay. I'll just ignore it because everything else is really good. The soundtrack is really solid, but like I'm more likely to ignore a mediocre soundtrack. Like it just fades into the background if it's not that good.
So here's where I kind of turn things around with regards to me liking the soundtrack more. We have gotten so spoiled with voice acting over the years. So because now it's something that can exist within a video game, even in an RPG. But RPGs have very typically have their roots in text-based speech. So I don't need voice acting, but I need to be able to enjoy what I'm listening to while I'm playing it, and that's why I think the soundtrack is that much more important. If we don't need to have bad voice acting, we should just have no voice acting if it was going to be bad.
Oh, I agree there. I'd rather have no voice acting than bad voice acting. I'm just saying I'm more likely to let the soundtrack fade into the background if I'm engaged with the story. If I'm engaged by the game itself, by the story, by the characters, I'm more likely to be like, okay, well this soundtrack's okay, and just sort of ignore it. If it's great, then I notice, but like it's not something that necessarily grabs my attention unless it's really terrible. Like off key or like something that was put together in someone's basement.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me, with the soundtracks, I generally only even really notice them when they are one or the other, really, really bad or really, really good.
Yeah, that's the thing. They only really get play when they're remarkable one way or the other.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I feel like I have a lot of the same logic on that. It's just that like for me, I would always mute or turn down the voice acting. Like really, I don't, you know what, I do that anyways. Like I go into settings and I turn like almost always like the sound effects and everything else like really down low because I'm there for the music. Like I have since like I don't know if the last like 3 years probably listened to the Persona soundtracks like once or twice a week fully. Um, I mean, and there's other games too, but like for me, the music immerses me back into that experience. So it's more than just like while I'm playing, it also like brings me back to the feeling and the experience. And like for me, like one of the things about my depression is sometimes that I can't find enjoyment in things. Like I can't bring myself to, let's say, play a game. So
Same.
remembering that game and remembering something that brought me joy is actually really like important. And for me, music does that in a way that I can ignore the voice acting later. So I think it's more of a yeah, it's more of a like a time delineation. Like I'm never going to listen to the voice acting after the game's done, but I will listen to the music.
That's a really interesting point. I was thinking more of just, while playing the game, but like I too listen to a lot of game soundtracks, including the Persona ones.
Yeah, same. And while like I love them, again, it's like these are the ones that were remarkable to me.
Yeah.
And when I'm not listening to a game soundtrack, it's something like, Five Finger Death Punch or Within Temptation. I don't necessarily discount either of your like personal experiences. I think this is a very personal question.
I would agree, and you know what? I have to confess that I've never actually thought of simply just seeing if I could turn off or at least significantly turn down the voice acting, though. I mean, I've known that those options exist. It's just never occurred to me to do it. So maybe next time I come across that issue,
Yeah, you can
maybe
try
that's
that.
what I do.
But
Yeah.
I will agree like the soundtrack can really bring you back cuz like Lord knows that I still tear up listening to Ares' theme from the oh god, the Final Fantasy concerts. I can't remember what they're called. Distant Worlds.
Oh yes.
So yeah, it's not necessarily the soundtrack from the game, but it's like the Distant Worlds concert version of these songs, right? And they bring me back to that experience, and I tear up at that song a lot because it just brings me back to that moment. But also, there's the getting pumped with that with other songs and like the flamenco song from Final Fantasy IX. I can't quite remember what it's called or pronounce it properly or hope to pronounce it properly. But like, yeah, I see what you mean. Whereas sometimes that music can like bring you back to that experience and put you in a better headspace.
All right. Well, I think this has been a very successful first round of Would You Rather. What do you guys think? Good? Bad?
I think we could do this again at some point. Maybe not right away, but I'd like to do this again. It spawned some very interesting discussion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we could use more interesting discussions in our lives, I think.
And like interesting discussions that aren't like about horrible news and people upsetting me.
Fair enough.
That definitely helps. So, all right. Well, we've heard it. We'll probably do another one of these somewhere down the road. So definitely keep looking forward to that. If you have any would you rathers that you'd like to give us, you can definitely send those to me through my social media. You can find me on Twitter at BillionairesXP. You can find me on Instagram at Ray Fegram, and you can check out my Wednesday streams, assuming my internet's good, also at Ray Fegram on Twitch, 7 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. Sky, where can everyone find you?
I'm at SkyKnightXP on Twitter and Twitch, SkyKnight.xp on Instagram, and I stream on Tuesday evenings, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right. And Irene, where can everyone find you?
Well, you can find me at irogue_xp on Twitter and Twitch, and I also think on Instagram now. I've become a Simstagrammer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm at irogue_xp on Twitch as well. I stream on Thursdays, so come check it out.
All right. And Mel, where can everyone find you?
You can find me online at FeministGamer3, and you can check out my D&D actual play, Darkness and Dragons. We air live on Twitch on Wednesdays at 6:30 EST, and then we post to YouTube and podcasts, so check it out.
Awesome. And don't forget to check out our website, xpbillionaires.wordpress.com. We've added a bunch of new quickfire reviews for you to check out, and hopefully we'll add some more written work in the near future. And lastly, we also have our coffee page where we put out our monthly newsletter, so please check that out. And if you feel like sending a donation our way, by all means do so. That's coffee.com/xpbillionaires. All right. So that's going to be it for us this week. And there is no would you rather this time. You just got to keep gaming. We'll see you next week, guys.
Stay socially isolated. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.